A recent article suggests the Miami Heat and the Houston Rockets could get together and make a blockbuster trade centered around Jimmy Butler and a bunch of young talent, including Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. We'll break down the article and what actually could go on this episode of Heat Digest. So let's get to it and break it all down. Is Jimmy Butler going back to his hometown? So if you don't know, Jimmy Butler is originally from Houston, Texas. Obviously, home of the Houston Rockets. Now, Jimmy Butler, as we all know, has been very, very public and very vocal about where he wants to finish out his career and where he wants to get his money from. And when I say that, I mean from the contract demands from earlier this offseason, where he said, I want to get paid by the Miami Heat until the age of 38, where I can then retire with the Miami Heat. I want to ride out in the sunset with this Miami Heat jersey on my back. I want it to be in South Beach. This is where I want to finish playing the game of basketball. But again, we've never really thought about the idea of sending Jimmy Butler back to the Houston, or not back to the Houston Rockets, but back to the state of Texas and back to Houston, Texas specifically. Now, well, let's get to it and break down the article saying, can Rockets bring Heat small forward Jimmy Butler home in trade? The Houston Rockets have long been linked to Jimmy Butler. Will they trade for the Miami Heat forward? This is written by Jeremy Brenner on August 31st, so just a day ago. So now let's get to it and break down some of the actual quotes from this article. As he goes on to say, the Houston Rockets have been in trade rumors linked to Jimmy Butler since 2018 in one way or another. As this has been true, obviously Jimmy Butler has been in some connection to the Rockets, but again, it's because of the hometown value, obviously, in the sense of that is behind the Houston Rockets because he's from Houston, but nothing has ever been said from Jimmy Butler along the lines of what he has said about the Miami Heat and wanting to go play there, wanting to retire there, or however may you want to see it. So again, I don't think there's a lot of actual concrete information behind the idea that they've long been linked. Like Trae Young and the Miami Heat have been linked together for some time. Obviously, nothing has ever happened, and obviously, there's a long line of players that have always been in relations with other. Donovan Mitchell in the Miami Heat, another very good example. Damian Lillard, obviously that has died down a bit after he went and signed with Milwaukee. But again, when there was rumblings about him leaving the Miami Heat, always seemed like the number one option that came up. But again, they were all rumors, they were all speculation, and again, that's what this is as we go on. So we get to the big quote as he goes on to say, perhaps Butler would appreciate a change of scenery at this point in his career. And Bleacher Report writer Greg Schwartz believes that the Rockets could be his next destination. Going on to say, and I quote, Butler's happiness in Miami with no contract extension is worth monitoring for the Rockets as well. A Houston, Texas native, Butler could be intrigued by the idea of a return to his home city in the challenge of leading a young team towards a championship, Schwartz writes. This core could benefit tremendously by being around Butler and his incredible work ethic, a 34-year-old should still have a few all-star caliber years of basketball left in him. End of quote. Again, from Mr. Schwartz. And this is a very, very reasonable idea that to go behind. Obviously, Jimmy Butler being from the state of Texas, being from Houston, playing high school basketball in the state of Texas. He hasn't ever played for a Texas team. Obviously, he hasn't played for the Rockets. He hasn't played for the San Antonio Spurs. So, would he like to go back to the state of Texas and wrap things up, make it a full circle moment? Yes, that seems like a very, very cool idea. But if we're going to make this trade, if we're going to get into the actual real pieces and the actual ideas behind it, I don't believe there's a chance. As he goes on to say, he is still a dynamic scorer in the league and averaging 20.8 points per game this past season, but the Rockets must ask themselves if it is worth extending Butler or the young Alperen Sengun or Jalen Green. One of those would likely be a headliner in a potential trade, and the Rockets might not be ready to swap out rising stars for an aging one just yet. So again, now we get back to the actual idea of making this trade and what would actually take it to make it work. As we know Jimmy Butler and what he brings to the floor, as we just covered him in the last video, just under 21 points per game, right around 6 rebounds, and just around 5.5 assists per game. He is a freak. He's very good at the game of basketball, and the only blemish on his entire career is the fact that he has not played a full 82-game season yet. Obviously, he's only surpassed, I believe, 70 twice in his career, and both of those seasons were in Chicago in his first opening years of his career. So, what's the big what Jalen Green, 19.5 points, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shooting 42% from the field, going into his third season in the league. The kid is 22 years old. He was the second overall pick in the 2021 draft. Again, this kid has a lot of potential. He has a lot of upside. He had a lot of moments last season. Again, they weren't for long periods of time. It could have been for games. It could have been for quarters. It could have been for stretches of quarters where he was very, very good. He has freak athleticism, and he's getting a lot better. And with the overall experience, he's going to become a problem in this league. I don't know if it's someone the Houston Rockets are going to look to trade, especially for someone in Jimmy Butler who's now going on to the age of 35. It's going to be very, very, very interesting. So then the other option, the better option out of the two, in my honest opinion, Alperen Sengun. This guy is a freak. He is going into his third season, just like Jalen Green. He is 22 years of age, as well as Jalen Green. And last year, this kid was a stud. 21.1 points per game, 9.3 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 53.7% from the field. This kid can shoot free throws effectively. He can shoot the mid-range jumper effectively. He has footwork that is close to Elijah. Like, that is who this kid is. That's who he reminds me of. He gets the ball on the post, and he can do so much. He might not be the most dominant force on the defensive end. I'm not saying he's he's slacking off on the defensive end, or he's not very good on the defensive end. I'm just saying he's not very imposing. He's not very dominant like some of these other guys you may think of, like Wembanyama, Gobert, Bam Adebayo, whoever it may be. He's not that level of defender yet, but again, offensively, the things this kid can do for you never really ends. He can catch the ball and he can initiate the offense without taking any dribbles, or he can put his back to the basket and work his way to the basket with great footwork and finish around the rim effectively, and as well as going to the free throw line and contributing and converting the free ones at the free throw line. If the Miami Heat were some way, somehow, the Houston Rockets were open to the idea of trading this young man to the Miami Heat, I would love it, but again, it would not work. And the reason it would not work is because of how this Miami Heat team is currently constructed. Where would he play? We just went and got Kel'el Ware with the 15th overall pick, who you know how I feel about him. He's 7 feet tall. He's going to be a lob threat every single time down the floor, and he can shoot an open three. Reminds me a lot of Derek Lively for the Dallas Mavericks, which I love. I think he's a great young player who's going to translate to be even a better player in the years coming. And I think Kel'el Ware is going to be around the same path, and he might even be better than Derek Lively. But then we continue. Jovic obviously playing the power forward. Bam Adebayo is not going anywhere, and he is playing the center. Could we move him to the power forward if we went and got Sengun and Bam Adebayo was still on the team? I don't think that could work because Sengun is dominantly a power forward. So Bam would stay at that center position. Sengun would go to the power forward. Butler would obviously no longer be on this team. So I'm assuming Jaquez would be the starting small forward. This team would look very, very different. I would love it having Sengun on this team because I think he's going to be good and very, very, very good for a very long time because, again, he's only 22 years of age. And, again, 6'11", 243 pounds. And the offensive bag he has is really just undeniable. The footwork is ridiculous. But again, the amount of talent we would then have, we would have a surplus at the power forward and center positions, which is great. We'd never run out of size. But Bam Adebayo, Kel'el Ware, Jovic, Sengun, all on the same team. Obviously, if we were giving up Butler, I feel like we would have to give up Jovic as well in order to get Sengun back so the Rockets feel like they have another young power forward that they can grow off of rather than Sengun. But again, that would be a lot of size. It'd look very, very different. And again, for Jalen Green, if we're able to go out and get Jalen Green, that would be awesome. But once again, we would be without Jimmy Butler, so he would be out of there, assuming Jaquez would then be playing the small forward. But then we have Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, Alec Burks, Josh Richardson, Duncan Robinson, Pella Larson, and then you would have Jalen Green as well. That would be a lot of talent at the 1 and 2 positions on this Miami Heat team. It's just going to be, it's a very interesting idea. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think it's ever going to actually get any traction either. I don't think this is something the Miami Heat are going to entertain, as well as I don't think the Rockets would do it either. And I think the Rockets would not do it before the Heat did it. I think the Heat would be more willing to make this trade. I don't think the Rockets would even pick up the phone at any point because of the amount of young assets they have, and giving them up for someone one in Jimmy, who's undeniable. We know how I feel about Jimmy Butler, and I think he's going to produce wins in Miami this up and coming season. But with Green and with Sengun and the other Jabari Smith, like the amount of young talent the Houston Rockets have right now, I would let them grow and allow that team to continue to build. But again, it was a fun article to discuss. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this idea. Would you guys do it if you were the Miami Heat? Would you just be calling the Houston Rockets, begging them, let's make this trade, let's make this trade? And would it be for Green? Would it be for Sengun? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Heat Digest.